Hello, this is the Blast Report podcast on all things blasting. My name is Evan Thibaud with New Wave Consulting, and I want to thank all the drill and blast teams along with those supporting them who are out there on the pattern. The production team at Blast Think and I would like to welcome you to today's episode of the Blast Report podcast. This episode is brought to you by Enrich Bits Tools, where we bring reliability back in business. Drill bits, loader teeth, roof bolt drivers, and other wear parts outperform and exceed your expectations. Find out more at enrichbits.com.
I'll tell you, and this is a true story. Before I got attracted across to being the backbone of Australia, whatever it was, I seriously considered being a social worker, which is just nuts. But and maybe some of that carries across and stuff like that. But you talk about the imposter syndrome, and it's you just as you say, somebody sees you and for 10 years and stuff like that, and then they get to know you. And I think the cool thing is that they get to see and hear about all your mistakes and all your cock-ups and all the times you were dumb or offensive or you put your foot in it or you are not diplomatic. I think it's important to see people and be visible as sometimes the jerk that you were and discuss your mistakes. It was, I can't believe I was that stupid or that cocky, all that sort of stuff. I mean, people, I don't know if everybody's gone through those phases, but I still do.
Oh, yeah. Every day I'm like, oh man, I shouldn't have said that. For me, the reason why we're kind of starting this podcast, and not only what we tell everyone, is that it's an online museum of people who have a lot of old stories to share. And we want to retain it before they retire and stop coming to the conferences. Yeah. But I get it. I get to actually sit down and hear everyone's story, and hear some good moments in it, and every podcast is usually one statement or something that comes, there's lots of stupid questions, and there's somehow it leads into one good experience when you're like, ooh, that was it. That was the hook of the podcast, and that everyone who's listening is going to be like, that was cool,
Try to fuck up on a regular basis, is my opinion. But never to the point where you can't recover from it.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way I've led and continue to lead a good life, because, I think it's so important to not worry about getting things wrong. And that's why the whole concept of, this is Bill or John or so, and he's this and he's that. It's I don't believe it. I don't believe it about me. I think if you knew how dumb I am, you'd be eating your words.
You do tend to come off as someone who is not a very stressed person. When someone looks at your demeanor, I would say you don't put off a stressful energy in your, and I think that probably is what helped you, is having that mindset that you have. It's like, I'm the idiot and I'm trying to just learn things. Other people are so stressed out that they feel like they're stupid, and it's like, we're all just going through this one at a time. No one's an expert in life in general,
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes my wife mostly, she'll say, stop trying to be so funny or stuff like that. And again, well, one, I don't try. And two, I refuse to believe that people can't learn while they're laughing. If you know what I mean. I mean, when people are happy and having a laugh and not taking you too seriously and themselves too seriously, they just soak shit up. They really do.
Dr. Worthy is a mentor of mine.
Yeah.
Him and Jill are amazing. And Tristan's a good friend of mine too. And so I remember, and he's always joking. He's always got messed up. It's just hilarious,
Yeah.
Usually offensive. And so
Of course.
he did this thing at one of these conferences where we took, you were probably there. There was a public speaker, and the technical session was about public and how public perception and how to deal with the public and what to say, what not to say. It made me more nervous about the public than just speaking the truth. And I realized, ooh, don't give me a microphone for that kind of conversation, because I'm definitely going to say the wrong thing. And Dr. Wurzy, who's always joking, and they gave him the mic in front of all 150 people or whatever, and everyone's giggling like, "Oh shit, how's he going to handle this?" Because he's just so boisterous and funny. And they grilled him with the question, and boy, did he perk up and just get super professional in that moment. He's someone who's always joking and enjoying everything, but in the moment of seriousness, when he performed, and everyone was like, they just all were like, "Dang, that was good," When normally he's always joking and laughing and everything, because like you said, having a positive attitude and being joyful and everything, it does help foster learning, I think. If you come at something with constantly a negative attitude, you're going to close I don't know about psychology or anything, but it seems to be that you close your mind off. You're not enjoying it, then and
you're scared shitless that you'll be wrong. And that's, when I first went back to Chile to sort of kick off Dynamite itself, and as I say, recruiting, things were a bit slow initially. It takes a while to build the brand and all that sort of stuff. So I think for a couple of years, through one of the guys that was on the team, I got to meet some of the academics at one of the universities in Chile, and they had a blasting guy that was retiring, and they said, "Why don't you do it?" I said, "Well," I thought to myself, "Well, I haven't studied teaching, but at the end of the day, it's really at that level, it's more about experience." And I said, and I have a doctorate, so academically I qualified. So I did that for 4 semesters, and it was just a lot of fun interacting with the students. And every semester at the first day, I said, "Look, I have 3 promises for you. One is that we're going to teach you the way that we would have loved to have been taught. 2, when you finish this course, passing it, you won't be a blasting engineer, but you'll be bloody useful if you're working with a blasting engineer. You'll know how to, you'll know what a GFET is. You'll know how to program a seismograph. You'll know about measuring VOD. You'll know," and we brought in, I think with a great collaboration of Mike Higgins from Self-Blast, we scored temporarily a bunch of licenses for Jackass Blast, put those on machines at the university. So I said, "So you'll know how to do this, you'll know how to do that, etc., etc. So you're going to learn a lot of stuff, as well as the theory." We had a unit on mine to mill. These are 4th year engineering students. It was like, this is mine to mill, and this is that. I said, "And the third thing, you're going to have a good time. We're going to have a good time." And we always did. And it was just, an absolute blast. And trying to take that same concept into every paper, if you're presenting, every contact with a customer, everything you do, it's fun.
It is fun. And
it's fun.
Being able to do experiments for a living, experiments with explosives.
Yeah, exactly.
Helps you get up and go to work a little bit more every day.
Absolutely. And as I say, simple shit. What happens if we just turn this around this way? And they said, "I can't think of why we wouldn't do that. So let's assume we can." And it works. And it's like, and they said, "Wow, that works." I said, "Mate, it's just a crazy idea." It just felt like it would be a good thing to do. And then somebody comes along and fills in the physics behind it, which is great. It means I continue to be illiterate.
And then, so have you seen any papers here that are like stemmed off of stuff that you helped like found? Have you ever come in and like they didn't contact you or anything and you just happened to see a presentation, you were like, you're like, oh man, we were the ones who kind of helped start that. People are using it now, I'm sure.
A couple of times, not this time, but there was one time, my PhD thesis was on the use of cross-hole seismics to detect damage and stuff like that. And so I built, we developed a model, which I've never used since, but it was all about, trying to find a way to model fractures from a transmission point and actually build up synthetic profiles of rock properties, matrix properties mostly. And it was good. It worked. It had a lot of data from field and stuff like that. And then years afterwards, I think it was one of the ICEs, and somebody got up and gave a paper on something really, really, really similar. And I'm sure, and I'd never published that work. So, it wasn't somebody saying, okay, I'll do something like that. There's no inspiration factor at all. Just another guy came up with a similar sort of idea. And I'm sitting in the audience. Have you ever come across a guy called Carlos Shetbenisa? He's a Chilean guy that sometimes comes along to these guys. He's a very close friend. And he's sitting over there and he just looked over at me and he went, I said, I don't know. Parallel evolution, I don't know. So anyway, that was I actually published that eventually at one of the ICEs, I think 2019, might have been before that. And I thought, man, this is, like you said, you never would have thought of that. What I do find is you do something, and it turns out not to be as unique as you thought. And all of a sudden, people will pop up and say, yeah, we did that over here. And it's sort of a reaffirmation of what you did. And that feels good because you think to yourself, I'm not nearly as dumb as I thought I was, or I should listen to my instincts more often.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was it's nice.
I could imagine that's a pretty cool feeling to like look back, that you had, even if it was just parallel universe or anything. I'm sure you had a conversation with the guy afterwards.
Yeah.
He was like, why didn't you publish that? You could have saved me a bunch of work.
Well, no, I said to the guy, I said, look, maybe keep doing it. Keep doing this work. You could be interested.
And so that was the pressure waves traveling through the rock, and you were modeling as it hit imperfections.
Well, basically, it's a different parameter. It's a bit like it's basically Q. It's Q factor, not Barton's Q, but it's a description of attenuation, and it relates to the amount of energy. Because as you know, as waves go through, they cycle, and they lose a certain amount of energy for every cycle, and as a proportion, it's constant. And that constant is related to this thing called Q. So basically, the higher the Q, the better we are. And the cool thing is, you go back in 6 months later, for example, and you repeat the scan, and you see that Q has fallen off, which is super interesting. In fact, I did some work at El Teniente, and I did 1987 scan 4 areas, and to characterize these areas, and they're all different geologies. And then came back 6 months later, the following year, and the guy sort of said, "Look, we had a rock burst and stuff, so we haven't gone back and done any more production there." I said, well, "Shit, I'm here, so let's go and do it." And we had 3 sites, and they coincided to within plus or minus 20 meters of the other ones, and 2 of them were exactly the same, and one of them was completely different. I said, this doesn't make any sense to me. So you go and talk to the geologists and the physicists. Say, what's different here? I said, is there anything you did here while I was away? I said, yeah, we had this really, really big blast and it fucked up the whole place. And I thought, well, that makes perfect sense. So basically that's coming through. The other cool thing is, with long hole open stopes, quite often you'll do lifts. So you go in and characterize this thing while you're still down here. get a bit of a change, and then you characterize the next one, and then the following one. So you see this gradual change. And again, this was at the JK. Cool thing there is that somebody else will be doing, another couple of colleagues will be doing different things in the same rock. So one of the guys was doing his PhD in crack detection and stuff with, and I'm talking 1990, with Warhol cameras. And bang, the changes in the rock measured with the seismics, with the cross-hole seismics, coincided to within 10 centimeters, if you like, of,
that's nice.
Of the fractures. Somebody once said to me, he said, know how is cool, know who is cooler. Yeah, because it's a fuck side easy.
Yeah, well, a lot of people always say it's not it's not what you know, it's who you know. But I always like to say, and it's how you know them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And because if you just know someone, they're not going to do anything for you. But if you know them and you know them well, you've got a trust or something built up with them, then they might actually help you. There's a lot of people out there stuck in their own world, just trying to survive. They're not necessarily going to put themselves on the line for
exactly.
someone.
It's like, you got to know people, and they've got to take you home.
Yeah.
And when you get to that sort of stage, you realize that it's things are working. And the other thing, of course, the flip side of that is, whether they're right or wrong to call you, you've got to take their calls as well.
Oh, yeah.
And even if it's the other thing is take calls from, like, I take calls pretty much. I try to answer any call that comes from a student. You just end up with a network of people that eventually, and all too quickly, it turns out, will be smarter than you. And then you guys say, you go and talk to your students, and they'll say, "Where did you get this idea?" I'll say, "Oh, from so and so." Yeah, but he's just, he's only been out for 2 years. And yeah, but he's a genius, or he's really clever, or he works really hard. And what's my merit? I talk to him. I listen to him. And, people just want to be listened to a lot of the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even if they're talking madness, there's always a bit of method in the madness.
And usually they got good stories.
Oh yeah, typically, yeah.
Is there an idea that you're going to go back to teaching, or are you enjoying the consulting? How's that working out? Like,
I find that there's a lot of similarities, a lot of common areas,
of course,
between them. But my wife always jokes about it. She says, eventually, the closing stages of your career, you might end up in, teaching in a university. I'd love to do that, for sure. I've done it a few times. As I say, people used to say, even today, I'll run into people in the industry, in Chile in particular, and they'll say, "Hola, profe." In other words, "Hi, professor," and it's like, because people just remember you. And what's really cool, really, really cool, is when you see some of these students come up and they become somebody. Like there's a she's a lady. She was one of the best students, and she's now the mine manager for Quellaveco, the Anglo project in Peru. She's just exactly the same. She's brilliant. And there's one of the guys that worked with us. He was a student in the same year, and then we hired him as in Spanish we say memorista. So it's basically like you have a word for it. What's it called?
A savant?
No. It's like you take somebody on as a student.
Like a mentor, a protege.
Yeah, but they come on and they work for you as a student. Well, they're usually doing a thesis or something like that. I forget what it's called. It'll come to me.
So like a grad student.
Like a grad student, yeah. There's another word. But anyway, we got this young guy to come in, and he worked with us. And basically worked with us for a little while, and then just took off. And he's now, I don't know what his exact title is, but he's in charge of all of the copper mines for Anglo-American. He's like a CEO of Anglo-American copper for the Americas. And it's like this guy's a mover and a shaker. And every now and again you run into them and you think, oh, how is it going soon? How's it going with you? How are the kids? And stuff like that. So it's being involved with that sort of thing. It's amazing and it's fulfilling. It really is fulfilling.
Oh yeah.
Intern, that's the word I was looking for.
Oh, intern, yeah.
When an intern, you take something on as an intern. It's just great fun.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Blast Report podcast. I want to thank the team at Blast Think for producing this show, and please follow along for more episodes in the future, and share this podcast with your colleagues so we can continue to honor our industry and the people in it. Be safe and have a blast.